Tom, pleasure to be speaking with you. I feel like I'm speaking to a living legend here.
Ah,
Award-winning actor. You give a terrific performance here. I
thank
do
you.
want to. We're obviously going to talk about it, but before we do, I want to ask you a simple question. For someone who hasn't heard of this film or isn't aware of it, how would you describe it to them, or tell me what do you think the film is about?
Well, I mean, obviously at the core, it's about a very strained relationship with an adult daughter and her 60-something father. Um, but I think it's sort of like the broadband description would just be it's a relationship story. I guess it's more drama, but I would say it's a comedy drama. There's some funny stuff in it. Funny little human moments, not comedy necessarily. But I just think it's a very relatable relationship story, father-daughter relationship story. And you have the father who is so completely removed and remote and isolated and a loner and all by his own design, and doesn't really feel disconnected until she shows up, and she kind of forces him to look at that and to examine all of the detritus in their past that, again, he's just oblivious to. He's just gone on and lived his life, and he has no awareness of what's happened with the family and what's happened with his ex, her mother, with Maggie's mother. But that's really it. It's a father-daughter story. Yeah. But throw in a little extraterrestrial searching. But she's doing her own terrestrial searching. So because she's got some dysfunction in her marriage, and she's lost, I guess. She's lost, and he's lost, and she kind of wants them to be found together.
As I just said, you had a terrific performance. I spoke to Alex, who mentioned that you were the first person he reached out to for the role.
Right.
But you're not just an actor, you're a producer in this. So talk to me about a little how you got involved and what compelled you so much to want to be a producer on this.
It wasn't something that came up. A lot of times that sort of thing on smaller films comes up contractually through your lawyer, and he should also be to give like more creative control. But on it, it was really Dianna was producing with Alex and with this other woman named Liz Cardenas, and it wasn't all the way until Alex was finished with the post-production that he said, "I'd really like you to be an executive producer on this." He asked me, and I said, "Why?" And he goes, "Because I really feel like the three of us, because Liz was on the production side, but the three of us really built it from the ground up." And the reason that I could justify it is because, and Alex may have said this, we had about a 9-month run up during the pandemic of none of us were distracted by any other projects in those 9 months because nobody was working. I mean, Acidman was my first thing, which we shot in May of 21. It was the first thing I had shot, I think, since the summer of 2019. And I mean, I had stuff that was set up, and then it just all, the pandemic just shut everything down completely for a solid calendar year, even though I was kind of working on Spiderman, No Way Home remotely. Which is I would come here and I would do CG in a trailer out in the parking lot because I'm at a studio in San Antonio. But and I would come here and do scratch tracks for the Sandman's dialogue. But other than doing that, I was not on a set for almost 2 years. And but we had this 9-month run up that I read the script, talked to Alex. He immediately looped in Dianna. And so we'd get on these hours-long calls, her in New York, him in LA, me in rural Texas. and just talk through every inch of the measure of the script and the characters and the story and scenes. And Dianna and I would read scenes and figure out, how can we tweak the dialogue, and, but also talk about Alex, the visuals that he wanted that were that were going to be part of the architecture of the scene, and or whatever the composition of the scene. And it's crazy at my age. And at that point I guess I was 60, but at that point I had never done that on any project ever, other than I worked on Spider-Man 3 for 2 years, but very fragmented. But this was like, Alex and I would get on the phone at least once, if not more often than that, a week. And then we would try to get on the phone every 2 weeks with the three of us. And I'm talking about for 9 months. That's a lot of phone time and a lot of, call it what you will, but it was rehearsal time. It was script development. It was script, rewriting and refining, and it was really awesome.
And that sounds incredible.
It was. If there was any advantage that came out of the pandemic, and I bet a lot of filmmakers say it, is that you couldn't do anything else. You know what I mean? Except focus on what the next thing out of the pandemic was going to be. And as it happened, then things just started tumbling off the truck. And I think I ended up doing three movies in 21, because I finished up No Way Home, did Acidman, finished up No Way Home, and then I shot another film in the fall of 21.
Is there one particular truth that the audience should believe, or is the film open for interpretation, in your opinion?
Oh, I think it's wide open. It's wide open. I mean, that's a multifaceted question, because you don't know. I mean, sort of the short answer to that is, when all through the process, but then even when we were shooting, but then even in conversations in post-production and getting copies, getting edits and giving notes, and, between myself, again, Dianna and Alex. But the thing for me was always, there's a very good chance, even though at the end she says she wants to know when he's going to make his next attempt to reach out, to really make a profound attempt to make contact. And they're looking at it, he's like, I think maybe in July. And at that point, we know what we know and about her. And he says, oh, she's like, well, I want to be here. And he's like, oh, but what about, she's like, don't worry about that. If I have to, I'll drive. And we've already gotten the information that she lives 2,000 miles away. But what I always maintained, and they agreed with me, is that there's a distinct possibility that they just won't ever see each other again. And to me, it's not sad. It's actually the opposite. It's sort of life affirming that they've had this reunion and this very emotional farewell, and it may be all they'll ever have, but that they both go away, I think, sort of nourished by that.
You took the words out of my mouth. As comforting as that final scene is between them, it felt to me like closure more than anything.
Right.
So I agree with.
And that's the way it was. That's the way, when she first comes in, and it's the same sort of. There's, they've obviously gotten more comfortable with one another, but something that Dianna and I sort of always maintained is that throughout, I think it might have been my idea, and she immediately was like, yes, but it could have been mutual. They don't ever touch. They never touch throughout the whole film until the very end. I hope that's not a spoiler, but they go the whole film, and then at the end, that's probably what, even maybe you didn't even pick up on that, but it's part of the finality, perhaps, of it. But I think the life affirming aspect of it is that they're making a plan for the future. It may not ever be realized, but they are making a plan for the future.
No, yeah, totally. It's not a spoiler. I think the last 5 minutes really contextualize the movie and really drive home what it really is about. And like,
Right.
yeah. So I'm not. I won't even touch that. Now, going into that slightly though, is there a message that you think the audiences can take away from that, or do you think that's also open for interpretation?
You know, somebody said it to me earlier. I was talking about relationships, and it's like, and I think really, like, such a soundbite. It's never too late to repair something, no matter how broken you may think an emotional relationship is. If all parties involved, if everybody's still alive, if everybody still has their their mental awareness, their emotional awareness, it's really never too late. Because ultimately, if you go away, like if Maggie and Lloyd had just been like, okay, hope to see you, like when she comes in and he's there, and if it's like, well, maybe I'll see you again in the next year or something like that, and she left, then it's just sad. Then it's just sad. And by the way, we did do it both ways. We did. I mean, her coming back in and us having that moment, that was really, that, to be honest with you, that wasn't planned. It wasn't planned. It wasn't planned at all. Alex, I knew he wanted to do something. I just didn't know definitively what it was.
So there's an alternate ending,
was.
is what you're saying.
What's
There's
that?
there's an alternate ending.
No. There was supposed to end when she leaves, and that's it.
Oh,
And that's it.
interesting.
And he goes back to working on his workbench, and then cut to her driving. No, she did not. She was never supposed to come back in. And that was a sneak attack. and a very very solid creative choice.
Yeah, no, and it works. It works, like you said. Final question for you. You mentioned Spider-Man, and I just have to ask this. I'm pretty sure a bunch of people have also asked, try to sneak in a question here, but you're a terrific actor, tons of range as this film exhibits. We last saw you in Spider-Man No Way Home as the Sandman. Would you ever be game to reprise the role or return? And now he's like a good guy.
Right.
Are you done with it? Talk to me.
I mean, he was always a good guy. In Spider-Man 3, he's just trying to save his daughter's life. And we had a whole story involving his daughter for No Way Home. And it just ended up, there was just so much going on. And John and I had, and Amy, the lead producer, and Kevin, we all had a lot of conversations. And I would say their conversations have been had about the possibility of Sandman coming into a future iteration of it. The conversation has happened about him coming back, and maybe picking up a more fulfilling story, with Flint and being not just Sandman, but returning to human form. Because there was a story of that. There's a reason that that in No Way Home, he can't be human until the very end, when you just see him very briefly, which was really a screen grab from Spider-Man 3. Because they kind of wanted to be that throwback thing where you see him the way he was. And because he can't, there's a chain of events where he could not be human. And now John and I have talked about the possibility in the future that he can come back as Flint Marko. So yeah, that's been discussed.
That's awesome. Well, whatever you do, Thomas, honestly, if there was any justice in this world, I think you should be nominated for an Academy Award for this performance. It's really
Oh,
terrific.
that's very
So,
thoughtful.
whatever you do in the future, I'm down to watch it. I've always been a huge fan, and I just want to thank you again for your time.
Absolutely.
And such a great performance. I wish
Thank
you the
you
best of
so
luck with
much.
this film. For real.
Thanks, dude.